Howdy YouTube, how are we all doing? Just a little short ride out on the Triumph Scrambler 900. Again, just a small little ride out for anybody that's interested in buying one of these bikes. The older Triumph Bonnevilles, air cooled rather than the liquid cooled, and should you buy one? So a question I get asked is this a good beginner bike? I would say no, and the reason I say no is for a couple of reasons. This bike is quite heavy. And I think if you've just passed your test and you've got one of these, it might be a little bit intimidating. Because let's face it, as a new rider passing your test, there's a good possibility you might drop this bike. And it's a big heavy bike, it's all metal, and it could be quite expensive to fix. So for that reason, because of the weight, I'd say start off on something a little bit lighter. I think if you've got a street twin, that would be more acceptable, because it is slightly lighter and the seat height is lower. This has got quite a tall seat height, and especially with the stock seat, as it's quite wide. I mean, I'm 5'9", average height, and with the stock seat I couldn't flat foot the bike because the seat was so wide, your legs were kind of splayed out. I've obviously changed the seat to a Motone crate seat, which is very narrow at the front, and now I can easily flat foot this bike with a good bend in my leg. So with a little modification you can flat foot the bike. Power wise, I don't think you'd be intimidated power wise with this bike. It's no slouch, it's not the quickest bike, but it's got plenty of power, and it's quite linear power, very smooth. But it's just the weight really, and it's a Triumph, so if you dropped it, it would be quite expensive to fix. So yeah, I'd say go for a street twin if you're a new rider. If you're a seasoned rider, experienced rider, not an issue. So as you can see, we're just riding along. We've got quite a nice smooth power delivery here. It's all good. It's a cold January day, but it's dry, so that's why we're out. And she's just purring along nicely with that lovely sound from that exhaust. So I've also been asked, can you tour on this bike? Absolutely you can. Again, going back to the power, it's got enough power for motorways. I mean, I think top speed this bike can do about 120 miles an hour, which is more than enough. Plenty of passing power. It will sit all day at 70, all day at 80 for that matter. Obviously it's a naked bike, there's no kind of wind protection, so that can be fatiguing. But I have taken this bike on long trips up to Wales and Scotland, and it can do it just fine. Are there better bikes to do that on? Of course there are, but you can do it on this. There's enough space at the back on this bench seat to strap a bag to, and I've got some touring luggage, and I will be doing a video on that, as well as doing a video on a long trip, which I'll be doing when the weather gets a bit warmer. So yeah, you can tour on this bike. This bike is a very versatile bike. It can do slow speed town riding, back road scratching, motorways, touring. It's just a very, very good all-round bike. I'm very, very pleased with it. I think the place for this bike though is the kind of the back roads. That's where it's kind of most happy, I would say. It can do all the other things, but yeah, just going for nice ride outs, commuting is great. The only thing with the commuting is you know, I use the bike all the time, so I commute to work. So I'm not a fair weather rider. The bike gets used all year round, which means it gets filthy, and it's a Triumph. Everything on it is metal, so you're worrying about rust, corrosion, that sort of thing. So you're constantly cleaning it, which I don't mind, but it is a bit of a pain in the arse because you're quite precious about a bike like this. You want to keep it nice and clean, looking good, that sort of thing. So you are constantly cleaning it, and it's black, so it's even worse. But yeah, it'll do everything you want it to do, this bike. It's got a lot of torque, and it'll just go. Obviously not the quickest bike, not a sports bike, but it's got enough shove and grunt, and I absolutely love it. So if you want to save a bit of cash and go for one of these bikes, I'd say go for it. Like I've mentioned in the previous video, I bought this bike without even test riding it, just because it looked cool, and I've not been disappointed with it at all. Absolutely awesome. Head turner, got that Triumph fit and finish. It looks just as good as the newer Bonnevilles, I think. And there's plenty of aftermarket parts if you want to customize it, mod it out like I've done. Not quite as many parts as the newer Bonnevilles, but there's loads you can get, so you won't be disappointed. And because it's a bare bones bike as well, like, I haven't had any issues with it sort of engine wise. The only issue I've had obviously is when I got caught in the rain with that, when I changed the lights out, but that's not the bike's fault. That's my fault for fitting a part that really didn't fit, and I kind of improvised, adapted, overcame, but then that failed because water was getting in. But it's not the bike's fault, that's me. So I've changed it back. On the whole, really, really happy. So if you're on a bit of a budget, you can't quite afford a brand new Triumph, consider one of these. What I will say as well is It's got a lot of road presence, this bike. Again, yes, it's heavy, but the weight of the bike, you know, you don't get buffeted around, you know, on motorways and fast roads when it's windy. It's really planted, really stable. I've got knobbly TCK 80 tyres on this, which grip the road really well. I don't get any road noise from those tyres. Where I live in Oxfordshire, there's a lot of broken roads, potholes. I mean, I think it's the same all over the UK. So this bike with the tyres, it's ideal for what I use it for. They're confidence inspiring, good grip, really good in the dry, really good in the wet. And because I live where there's lots of gravel and things like that, the tyres hold out really well. I'm not an off-roader. I never plan to take this bike off-road, although it's pegged as a scrambler. Okay, I don't really think it can scramble. It's too heavy. However, having said that, there are some videos on YouTube where some dirt bike riders have done some videos and taken this bike and literally have thrown it around like a toy up sand dunes and gravel roads and stuff like that. So it can be done. It's just I don't have the skill set to do that, and I never would, because I'd be frightened about dropping it and scuffing it up. Obviously this one has got the dual clocks, which look absolutely lovely on this bike, which I prefer to the single clock. I like the single clock on the new bikes, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about having dual clocks. It just looks really, really awesome. So yeah, good tyres. Suspension on this bike, I've got aftermarket suspension on this. I think I've shown it in another video, with adjustable preload. And what I like about the shocks on this bike is there's just a lever, so I don't need any tools. I can just adjust it on the fly. So if I put luggage on it, I can adjust the suspension. When I bought it, it was quite firm. The previous owner had it quite firm, so I've just knocked it down a couple of clicks, so it's a little bit softer for me, and I've got no issues with it at all. And that's quite handy, not having to use tools to adjust your suspension. Comfort wise, it's very comfortable. Like I said, I'm 5'9". This bike fits me really, really well. I can flat foot it. This Motone crate seat is really comfortable. Like I said, I've been on long trips with this seat and I've been absolutely fine on it. Not once did I feel like I need to get off because I'm uncomfortable. There's quite a nice bend to the legs. The foot pegs are kind of underneath you, but a little bit set back. Not sport bike kind of rear sets, but just underneath you. People have mentioned, is there any heat coming off the high pipe? Well, as you've probably seen, I've wrapped the exhaust